So, hello, good morning, and welcome. My name is Sabine, and together with my colleague Chris, we will lead today's webinar about the Smarter Roastery, how Cropster Roast helps you achieve outstanding roast quality and efficient workflows. Thank you for joining, and we hope you will have a great experience today. I quickly want to introduce both of us. Chris joined Cropster a couple of months ago. He's the production manager for Cropster Roast and Cropster Lab. And I'm working in sales, mainly for the Asian market. And we are both located at the headquarters in Innsbruck, Austria. So, yeah. Some important details to start off. Well, you might have seen we are new to webinar, so thank you for your patience. Patience if it feels a little bumpy, but we try to make it as smooth as possible. And you are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions, comments, or technical issues, please use the question window. We will either answer your question straight away after the webinar, or if the question needs some follow-up, we will get in touch with email. The agenda for today is Chris will start off and talk about what Cropster Roast is and how it helps roasteries small and big around the world to roast consistent quality, to better organize their roastery, and how they actually better understand their coffee. I will then go on and talk about Cropster Roast environment, and jump into the system itself and do a little demonstration about green coffee management profile, production, and quality control. The webinar will take around 1 hour, and then at the end we will have a little question and answer section. Okay, I think that's so far from my side. So, Chris, may I hand over to you for the first part?
Yep. Hi, so thanks for joining today. As mentioned, I joined Cropster actually 4 months ago. While I'm new to the company, I've actually been an advocate for Cropster for quite a while now, I think since it began 10 years ago. I've also been in the coffee industry about 20 years, and I mention it because I myself have worked in quite a few different roasting environments in quite a few ranges of coffee companies. And while I believe I've had exposure to a wide range of these environments, one thing that Cropster really does incredibly well is take feedback from the roasting community, and that's how products are developed. It's how we make revisions to the process flow, to any of the platforms that we actually develop or revise or launch new features is almost 100% derived from the roasting community, the feedback, and that's actually my role as product manager, is to solicit the feedback. Sometimes I pursue it, and then at other times we generally get the feedback on feature requests, so we can filter through those and make enhancements to the platform. So I'm going to walk through what Cropster actually is, how it can help the business, your business in coffee roasting, and also talk to each of these 3 pillars. We'll go into some detail that during the demo that Sabine is going to give us. It's a little challenging to walk through and talk about the rationale behind it, or how it can improve your workflow, or how it can be beneficial to your company. It's challenging in real time to kind of elaborate on the why and how things are happening. So we're going to do it slide by slide, talk about the main points that we want to emphasize, and then when she gets into the demo, you can see it live and see how it works. So yeah, Cropster it's more than just a roast profiling system, and I think that's often what people think of Cropster. It's actually a program that really is designed to be comprehensive for the entire coffee roasting company. So it entails green coffee, the whole purchasing process, sample evaluation, inventory management of your green coffee, then the quality control that's related to the inbound, like your decision to purchase the green coffee, tracking the green coffee over time that it's either between your first evaluation and the last time you roast it. We have production and roasting. It's obviously the kind of the main core of the design is around the roasting and production aspects and studying or actually monitoring the different process parameters that exist in roasting, and then capturing that data in a way that allows the users to then leverage it and make decisions about how to optimize roasting, how to get the the flavor attributes that are desirable. And then into production cupping, so allowing users to then go back to, you have your green coffee quality evaluation, and then you have the ability to compare it to production roasting. So for each of these pillars, we're going to go into further detail. So going to green coffee then. Yeah. Again, in the demo, we'll touch on this, or Sabina will touch on aspects of this. Whether we can get into every aspect, it's quite hard to get all of this in a short period of time. 50 minutes would seem like a long time. It's actually not. So yeah, green coffee inventory. Again, from the point at which you start receiving samples, obviously to have coffee to roast, you have to buy it, and that's where Cropster, that's where the process starts. So we have green coffee inbound samples. So as you can offer samples, if you have arrival samples, pre-ship, all types of samples that are involved in the coffee buying process are input into Cropster. So, or not input, but you are, as the user, you put these this information and these samples into the system. You're allowed to, or you're able to track samples, so the change in quality over time, or from the point at which you get a spot sample, or a pre-ship sample, or an offer sample, all the way through to its arrival in the warehouse that you either maintain on-site or possibly an off-site inventory. And then periodic, we have customers or users that do periodic quality inspections every month or every 2 months to just reevaluate. They sample roast the coffee, reevaluate it, and assess whether or not there's been a decline in quality. So that's one of the features that we really advocate, is the comprehensive physical evaluation of green coffee. That data can be put into Cropster. We have moisture, screen size, water activity, total defect count. This information obviously is often leveraged to make a decision about whether or not the coffee is fit for what you want to use, or if it's potentially going to behave differently within the roasting process. And that gets into a later module where we talk about the roasting and how the green coffee parameters actually are used to define a roast curve, or roast profile. During the purchasing process, you have total flexibility to do green coffee evaluation, or just if cupping is the primary, or the whole of quality control. Sample roasting can be logged, and also the cupping results, the attribute rating. We allow for customized cupping reports. So if I think by default there's a list of cupping sheets that are pretty standard within the industry, but then a lot of companies actually have modified their internal unique cupping forms and cupping attributes that they look after, and we do have a customizable feature for that, as well as defect counts. So if there's certain physical defects that are important to you, we allow for customizing that as well. When the green coffee is purchased, that's when it enters the inventory. We have reporting and management of green coffee inventory. So as you're purchasing coffee, or when you make a purchase, the coffee is obviously brought into your inventory. That's when it really makes its appearance in Cropster outside of samples prior to the purchase of the coffee. At any given time, there's inventory reports available to you. So if you have what I refer to as green types, if you have 20 green types or specific coffees that you buy and manage, inventory reporting is available. We also have a feature when a coffee it first arrives into the system, you can set a runout date. Runout date would be, sorry, not a runout date, but a runout
Minimum.
minimum. Thank you. So if you have a threshold, you want to keep 6 weeks of green coffee on hand, or if you have an offsite storage that you have coffee and you need to just reorder it, and it requires a week or 2 weeks to get that from an offsite warehouse into your inventory. It's each coffee has a minimum that you can set, and you'll get a message or a prompt that basically reminds you that you'll need to be either sourcing a replacement or you'll be having to contact the warehouse to move the coffee into your inventory. The inventory report obviously is it's real-time inventory report, and then history and projections actually allows you to look at any particular green coffee and its usage over time. If you're looking at year over year, or if you're estimating that you're going to grow X% over a period of 1 or 2 years, and you have a 10 or 12% increase, you can look at your historical use of a particular coffee and actually use that information to predict how much coffee you'll need in the future. Or if you run out of a coffee, you have no intention to replace it, but you want to know how much of another coffee you would use in that same kind of category. The history allows you to go back and look at any of those coffees. The projection is a projected runout time. So based on your inventory and how much coffee you're roasting in a particular month or so, it projects when it's expected to run out. Again, it's kind of to supplement the minimum threshold that we have set for the green coffees. Multiple locations, it allows you to manage green coffee from various locations. Pretty self-explanatory. And track samples also kind of explains the idea of from the time that you're given a type sample or an offer sample, and then a pre-ship sample, port sample, arrival sample, inventory sample, you can perform any of the green coffee or sensory evaluations, cupping that you would normally do, and just track the trend. A lot of people use this to understand if there's deterioration in quality based on storage, and what that deterioration or what that quality decline is, and help them make and understand a decision about its usage. They might want to increase the use of that coffee if it's starting to decline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So then we'll go into roasting and production. So the kind of the bullet points we want to talk about are, I'd say again, the core of Cropster was based on tracking the parameters that are key to roasting and roasting success, and having a consistent quality that the roast master has actually defined. If we can go to the next page.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So within the system, it allows you to create profiles. So each of the coffees, it's generally regarded that each coffee may require its own unique profile. This is something that we definitely advocate people explore, and Cropster definitely allows people to establish a roast profile for each of the coffees. Generally, what happens when you get new coffee, go through a trial and error process, generally have a profile that's kind of tried and true that might be applied to a particular category. It might be a decaf coffee roasts differently than a regular coffee that's a high grown versus a low grown. So a lot of people have base profiles that they've established and they maintain within their system. And when a new coffee arrives, they can start exploration with again, a tried and true existing profile, then make modifications along the way. During the profile, during the roasting process, the profile is actually being created. And during the demo, you'll see this in live, if you aren't aware of it already. Basically tracking time temperature, and then also allows the user, the roaster, to make real-time comments. It could be observation like first crack, second crack, a color change. Often it's a change in gas flow or airflow settings when they might open a damper or close a damper. So the comments are actually recorded overlapping or kind of overlaying with the time temperature curve and some other sensor reading during the roast profile. It's at that point, it becomes a matter of record. The coffee, say you run 4 or 5 trials, this is all recorded. One would generally cup and evaluate the samples, evaluate the different roasts, make some decision about which coffee was the one that was preferred, and then that can be set as your reference curve. And that reference curve serves as more or less a watermark on your next roast for that coffee. You have your time temperature curve, you have your comments that allow you to replicate. It becomes instruction at that point. When did I change the gas? When did I change the airflow? What do I need to do at what point in time during the roast to replicate what I did previously? So the profile is created while you're doing just a straight up roast. You make your adjustments, you make recordings about those adjustments. And then when it comes time to replicate it, it actually serves as a template for you to maneuver or guide the roast process to try and mirror or match that the curve. A lot of times you'll want to look at various roasts and see how they compare to one another. And we have a roast compare report that it could be used to see how different 2 roast profiles are from one another, or I've seen it used to kind of challenge whether or not maybe numerous roast profiles exist, but when you do a roast compare, you might see that they're actually quite similar, and you might want to simplify your roasting process. You might want to harmonize or merge a couple of roast profiles and align on one. So the roast compare reports just provides that information to you. Basically, again, it's an overlay of multiple roasts that you can decide which of those roasts you'd like to compare and see how they look lined up one on one. It provides a lot of insight because often we have some idea or theory about how a roast might look or how different they are, and sometimes when you see the time temperature curves that are actually quite similar, and ones that you think are quite similar can differ significantly. So in defining a roast profile, we have goal setting. Goal setting is really establishing some boundaries with which you want to have your roast profile exist. So you have a minimum star weight or a maximum star weight that you're going to be roasting. You might have a maximum or minimum end weight, which really does lead back into what the percent loss was during the roast. There might be a duration of time in any particular roasting phase, so the drying phase, Maillard phase, development phase. There might be minimum, maximum times that you want to stay within those areas, and there might also be times that you want to roast within the target time, plus or minus 30 seconds or 20 seconds. Those roast goals really help to establish what is the boundaries with which you would define a particular roast profile. I've advocated that using the roast goals really helps. You have a time temperature curve that you're trying to guide your roast over, and then you set some boundaries. That cupping may help you decide where those boundaries are, where you want to define where a roast profile ends and another one begins. So it might be, I don't want to roast this coffee more than 30 seconds outside of what my expected end time is. It does help establish and I guess reiterate roast profiles and their importance on that particular green coffee. Roast scheduling we'll go into, but essentially you can schedule your roast batches ahead of time. Take existing orders into the system, aggregate multiple orders to come up with however many batch sizes you actually need to roast. And scheduling, in the process, if you have multiple roasters, you can assign certain roast profiles to particular roasting equipment. So if you have one roaster that you prefer to do darker roasts on or decaf, or if you have organic certification or something, you need to have kind of segregation of products. You can assign the roast batches to particular roast machines. You can also stage the roasts in a particular order if you follow darkest to lightest or lightest to darkest or conventional to organic. The schedule allows you flexibility in batching those, ordering them, and defining what roasting equipment the coffee will be roasted on. And then production reports are essentially every coffee that comes into your warehouse as a green coffee is eventually going to be roasted. All of this, again, is it's a matter of record, and production reports allow you to look at any particular roast profile, see what the volume was for that particular day, how many batches were roasted. Any specific roast batch can be reviewed for the parameters. If you have roasting goals, that will be alerted if a roasting goal is not achieved. If it goes beyond the duration that you set or a weight limit that you had, you would get notification if you had that setting established, but also production reports would be reviewable as well.
Okay.
And then cupping, QC. This kind of it's at this point in the pyramid because you actually are doing QC generally ahead of the actual coffee coming in, but you're also doing QC as often as finished product. So it straddles both areas. It's green coffee quality, but it's also finished product quality. So we'll go into the bullet points of that. We have, we mentioned the customizable cupping form. So many companies that we encounter use some element of an existing cupping form. So FCA is an obvious one. COE is one that people use for the CQI. A lot of times people will eliminate one or two attributes, or they really want to emphasize sweetness, so that's a key attribute, and they might drop another attribute. So we allow for customizable cupping forms. It helps, again, it helps the company really establish and monitor the attributes that they really find essential to their products. The descriptors, we also have a drop-down menu that has sourced from the primary source, I think the World Coffee Research published vocabulary, and then supplemented with other input. But it's basically the descriptors that are common throughout the industry and allowed to be selectable. It also allows for users to put in customized descriptors. In the process of cupping, when the panelist is actually entering cupping attributes, the sum of the descriptors are actually quantified. So in the instance that a coffee has cherry highlighted by 3-4 panelists, that would show up as a leading descriptor, and in parentheses it would show 3 or 4, it would show how many times this was highlighted as a descriptor. So it prioritizes the descriptors that show up in the order in which they appear. So this information is often used for marketing when they're coming up with a new flavor description for a coffee on your bag, and you really want to highlight what the cuppers were experiencing. Quantifying how many times a particular descriptor showed up is really helpful in kind of coming up with the marketing terminology you want to use to describe your finished product. Within the descriptors, we have a preset that you're expected, or we would anticipate that certain descriptors are positive and certain are negative. That's changeable, though. If fruity is not a characteristic that you find positive, you can always edit this and make it a negative. I guess it would depend on your coffee. So it's user-defined parameters. We mentioned quality over time. to some extent with the sample tracking, but a lot of the companies we work with do take periodic, some cup every roasted batch, some cup once a day, some once a week. It's, you know, there's no right answer for the frequency, but a lot of companies will take finished product cupping and look at the increase, decrease, or, you know, hopefully a flat line for quality. And the quality is really as defined by a cupping score, 100 points. So if you have a consistent 86, it's showing that there's really no variation in your roasting, there's no variation in your green coffee, and everything's going very well. But so the quality over time is a report that a lot of people use just to track quality trends in their product. Quality compare is very similar, except you can select multiple coffees to compare. So if you looking at a Kenya, Sumatra, Ethiopia, or two Ethiopians from different farms or different process of the same coffee, it allows you to do a comparison of whichever coffees you're looking at or isolating for comparison. The physical analysis I mentioned in the green aspect, but we do have a robust green coffee analysis. A lot of people take the moisture, screen size, water activity, and intrinsic quality attributes and use that information to identify or define a roast profile. This information, we really advocate that one or more of those attributes are actually used to kind of characterize a green coffee. And then again, the roaster being familiar with maybe a high moisture content coffee, high, you know, for within boundaries, but a 12% moisture coffee is going to roast differently than 9%. And a lot of people use the green coffee quality attributes to help understand how they might apply it, a roast profile, or how they might want to modify a roast profile if they're changing between lots and they actually have a change in moisture content or a slightly different screen size. Over time, in the collection of this data, especially the physical analysis and how it kind of leads to your selection or development of a roast profile. When you encounter a coffee that has similar characteristics, you can then reference a profile used on a coffee with similar physical properties. So it really starts to help take some of the guesswork out and reduce the amount of I guess reference profiles that you might choose to apply to a coffee at any given time. And then Cropster Cup is a way to make generally a portable cupping session. So the cupping session can be created and then people can use their handheld device either at that time or for a later cupping session. So the coffees can be scheduled by roasting. The roasting staff can create cupping sessions, and then at the end of the day, if you want to go back as a panel, coordinated time and review everything that was roasted that day, or if they're doing trials and they want to schedule something for the next day for review after degassing or whatever time interval, it allows a cupping session to be created and either by phone or tablet to have people enter their cupping scores and automate actually the data collection process, which can be sometimes cumbersome, and if you don't have someone with good penmanship, it can be challenging to understand their descriptors and how they've rated the coffee. So moving on, we'll see again some of those features, but it's difficult to go through the demo and actually elaborate on what's happening and how it's relevant to the coffee process at that time. So we'll do our best.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So now we will have a look at the Cropster Roast environment. So we will mainly focus on that part. Every company gets their secure access to their own Cropster account, which is called Caesar, and to which you can invite other staff members or partners as users and set specific permission. Depending on your size and needs, you can choose from different packages. As a second component, that's the roasting intelligence. It's a client software. You download it on your laptop or computer and connect it to any roasting machine on the market. Once it's up and running, you track every second of the roast and track all different values throughout the roasting process, but we will have a look at that later on. On the right-hand side, you see the cupping app, which is a mobile-friendly application, which allows you to track cupping results and ties them directly to your roasts or green inventory. With Cropster Cup, you have a cupping sheet in your pocket and makes the cupping information just more useful. But nonetheless, the Caesar is the heart piece of every roast subscription, as it collects, integrates, and visualizes all the information across those systems, and gives you access at every time, at every second. Both of our RI and cupping app are stress tested as they are being used in international competitions all the time. So now I think done with talking, let's have a look at the workflows. So I want to switch into the demonstration mode. Okay, so at first I will showcase our recommended basic workflow every roaster who is using Cropster should use. But please always know you can use Cropster as simple or complex as you want. You decide. So at first, with just a few steps, we register some green coffee. We go into green, add inventory, and click run. So as an example, let's say we take an Ethiopia cinnamon. Weight, either let's say at 120 kilos, or you can select bags, which ends up in the weight as well. Here, which Chris mentioned, the minimum inventory level. Let's say the Ethiopia cinnamon should not get below 30 kilos. Price. If you manage multiple locations, great, we can cover that as well. Let's say that is stored in the external warehouse. Variety. Also, as a drop-down menu available. Country of origin, Ethiopia. So if you now think, oh, actually, I want to track more information, just click on Customize and select whatever you want to track. In addition, let's say crop year or processing. Crop year 2017 and processing is fully washed coffee. Over here you see the green grading information, moisture 11% and water activity 0.5. So you have seen just a couple of steps. We click add green inventory and that's how it ends up in your system. On the right hand side, you see the next, already the next step for you should focus on is to create a profile with that lot. Click. Choose which type of coffee it is. For the example, we do a single origin. Call it Ethiopia. Ethiopia. Cinnamon. If you start roasting with Cropster, at first you won't have a reference curve, but then you can choose one of your former roasts. So let me choose one. Expected weight loss. So here within the profile creation, you can set some predefined values like the weight loss or the ideal batch size. Let's say it's also 15 and restricted to a roasting machine. Take the Gießen. And then create the profile. For your understanding, we at Cropster see the profile as a key foundation for a roastery, just like a recipe in a kitchen. The profile includes a set of core information as the recipe, like a blend recipe, the reference curve, cupping information, and also cupping like development over time. So within the profile, you will automatically collect all the information across your production and then have a baseline to measure against it. Once you are done with the profile, you could actually switch over to the roasting intelligence and start roasting. But for that example, I would actually like to take it one step further and do a scheduling to show how that actually works within Cropster. So roast schedule. Okay. With the scheduling function, the production manager can plan ahead for the week, for the day, for the month, whatever, and communicate with the roaster the daily production throughout the system. So for today, I already planned 3 times the blueberry blend, and I want to do another schedule. Clicking here, create schedule, similar region, and we choose the Ethiopia Sidamo. We select the team member. Let's say Steven should roast. So now you say, I want to click add and add the batches directly, or you want to have a calculation according to your orders. So we say we need 40 kilos. With the weight loss in mind, we need 47 kilos of green with a batch size of 15. So I remember we have a little coffee left, so we just downgrade the batches to 3. But on the other hand, you can also round up to full batch. So this ends up in 38.25 kilos of roasted coffee. We add those batches, which you will see for the day, Thursday, 26th. You still can move it around, change the weight, whatever. If it's good to go, you just click here on Publish. And it will be synced with the roasting intelligence, which I will now switch to. The new roasting intelligence, our newest ergonomic roasting system, was developed with our design team and some roasters around the world. Over here you see the dashboard. If you do the production scheduling, you will see now what I have scheduled beforehand. You see which profile is the assigned green inventory and the start rate. The roasting intelligence is tied with your green inventory, so every time you roast, the start rate will be deducted automatically, which allows you to have always an exact production and inventory statistic. If you roast a blend, you will see down here the percentage and the weight of each of the components, and for the same is true for the single origin. Once you are ready to get started, you click Start Roasting, and the roasting intelligence will track every second of the roast throughout the whole roasting process. In addition, the RI allows you to track comments. So you simply click on the screen, it opens up and say, okay, it's the first roast of today. Text only. Or you wanna, of course the timing is not right, But let's say color change. You want to add that comment or that event, you click color change, and down here you see the next phase as well of the roasting. I see it also in the timing over here. Anything else we should add on the roasting? If you want to prepare for the next production or for the next batch, you just click on the production and you see, okay, next one is Ethiopia Sidimori as well. Prepare the green beans, put it in the hopper, and once you finish that roast, you can start right over with the next batch. Speaking of stop roasting, once you are finished with the roast, you click down here on stop roasting. With the weight loss in mind, you will get an estimation of the end weight. Of course, you can always override it. And you see the new calculation of the weight loss. Roast value 1 and 2, and additional roast notes if needed. You click Save Roasted, and every time after you finish the roast, it will be synchronized with the server. Save roasting, yes. So I want to switch back to Caesar again to have a look on how that looks, on how the roast then looks within Caesar again. So here. Being back at the Caesar, within roast and roast, you will find every single roast you have done. Each roast will get an individual ID tag, and as Chris mentioned before, you wanna sometimes analyze this roast, or you're getting, for example, a new green coffee, and the production manager or roaster wants to find a new profile as soon as possible to meet the customer's taste again, or to not waste any green. You choose the profile, select some roasts, tick the boxes, and click on Roast Compare. And then with that overview, you will get the tool to have a closer look at key factors. So over here, you will have an overlay of the roast. On the right-hand side, you will always see the temperatures of the curve itself. You can zoom in to see, okay, actually I want to have an exact overview what happened during the spread. So whatever is important for you to see. The further more you go down, the further down you go. You see always all the course and all the information to it next to each other. So you see the modulation chart of all the three. Down here you see the roast dates, duration, development time, first cook, start temperature, end temperature. And what's now coming into play is the cupping information. So for those three, we have done cupping. You see this cupping score down here, above here. And that one was scored highest and is marked as the reference curve in yellow. If you want to change the reference curve, you simply click here on the yellow star. And for the next roast, it will just change the reference curve for you in the RI. So with the roast compare report, you get a tool to make a better decision, and just have a closer look what's happening on your profile. Another report which I would like to get into detail is the production report. So every roast automatically adds to the production history and accounts for green coffee consumption as well. So which supports both the roast production planning and the green coffee buying. So I've set the specific time range to have a look what we have roasted. So you see we did a 176,000 kilos. We used 206,000 kilos of green. You see the summary if you're using several machines, and you see the summary on the workers as well. By going down, you have an overview of your profiles. You see the tendency to the previous period, so you see it on how you perform over time, and the same for the green inventory as well. So down here. Speaking of green inventory, we also let me see here. We also have an inventory report where you can see how much coffee you have in your warehouse. If you manage multiple warehouses, you see the warehouse, you see the value of the coffee. Let me show you. You see the total amount in your inventory and by each of the lots. And down here you have it as an overview, the weight, initial weight and the current weight, and the location. As a last part, I would like to go into cupping. So I would like to show you how easy you make your cupping data useful and on how to enter it in Cropster. There are different approaches on how to edit or how to set up a cupping session. I will do it through roasts, and I select just the last 3 roasts I did. Click on quality, create cupping session. You can select which type of session you would like to do, non-blind, blind, or double blind. You can schedule it for a specific day. We name it, let's say, webinar test cupping. We take the SCA cupping sheet, but as Chris mentioned before, we do individual cupping sheets as well. And click Save and Next. Cup with Cropster Cup, done. So for you, you would now take your cupping, your mobile phone or tablet, and open the cupping app and start the session for here. For the example today, I opened cup on the browser. I click refresh. The webinar test cupping, I enter the session. And that's how it would look like on your mobile device. So, like that. Just to get an idea. With the slider, you select the number of the scoring. Down here, you will see the final score. It sums up. The World Coffee Research Descriptor Lexicon is added to the cupping app. Just type in 2 words and you get something to choose from. I don't know the word. So what's on? There's endless options for you to enter information. Once you're finished, you click submit the cupping. Okay, and then it will end up going back to the roasts. I've of course prepared a nicer example to see on how useful it can be. So for that example, we did 4 of us did a cupping. In total, we submitted 15 results. You see the evaluators over here. A short overview of the coffees. If you go further down, you see the scoring of each of the coffee. If you want to have a comparison of the evaluators, you just click on that and see on how well that cupping panel is calibrated. Going down, you see the categories in detail and the descriptors down here. So they more often someone is choosing the descriptor, the bigger it gets to have a better overview. If you are interested, we offer a 30 days free trial, and it's our duty to ensure you have a smooth setup and start. So therefore, we offer full remote support during the setup stage. So just get in touch with us at sales@cropster.com, and we will get you started as soon as possible, and so you can explore and test the system 30 days for free. Anything from your side?
No, just thank you again for joining the webinar. I hope it was useful. I hope I provided insight into Cropster and some of the functionalities that are offered.
Yeah, so see you next time, and thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.